I have a business owner friend who sold his office building because he just flat didn't need it anymore. He moved his business from fully on site to hybrid and then to fully remote. He tells his story on how he did it and how he continues to grow his company. I think you'll enjoy this. Hey, welcome to the Charlie Papparelli Show. I'm here with Jason Smith, who is the CEO and founder of iStaff, which can be found at iStaff.com. They're a professional services organization that is a mid-sized company with employees basically throughout the United States. It's I was talking to Jason, and we started over a lunch, and he made some comments about how COVID impacted his business. The big thing that got me is I found out that Jason, who owned his own office building, had sold it. And I said, why'd you sell your office building? And that was kind of the start of thing. So why did you sell your office building?
Because I was tired of going in there once a week and looking at pictures of people's kids pinned up in the cubicles and being the only person there.
Oh my God. Well, so all of this started back in COVID.
Correct.
Right. Prior to COVID, what did your operation look like prior to COVID?
We were a hybrid operation. If you were geographically desirable to the office, you were in 5 days a week, but we also had employees in multiple states, and they were 100% remote.
But you were in the office, and your employee and your other office staff,
yes,
your G&A, that were mostly in the office.
Correct. Yeah, everyone like Atlanta-based was in the office. Correct.
Okay, every day.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, and then COVID hit.
Correct.
And what did that do? What happened to the operation then? Because you still own the office.
Yeah. So we had the technology to be remote. We had, about a third of the staff remote. So everybody had to go home, and everybody, simply work the way the out-of-state employees did. And we had an empty office.
Did you? And so what happened from there? So now you're the only one, like you said. I love what you said. I
would go in.
I look at the cubicles, and all I see is their family pictures.
Yeah. So we ended up hiring more people that were what I'd call geographically undesirable, because having the remote platform gave us, a pretty good reach. And no one really wanted to come into the office. We set up, we have pretty high metrics, and we just reevaluated those, made sure that no matter where someone's working, that they're hitting their metrics, and things really started to click. So from there, we had to look and say, well, what is our corporate culture like? Is it just going to fall away? Because we had a great culture in the office, and so from there, we said, well, there's a few things we need to do. We meet on Zoom every morning, 5 days a week, to go over the book of business. We see each other, cameras are on, we're interacting. No matter where you are in the United States, you're on that call. And during the day, when we're talking and meeting and so forth.
This is, you say 5 days a week you do this?
Yes, every morning, correct.
Every morning, okay.
And then we encourage people. We're like, if you're on a meeting and if you want to talk to, maybe one of your work partners or whatever, reach out to them over Teams or Zoom, if it warrants a conversation.
And people are doing that?
Yes, correct, yeah.
All right. Well, you made another comment to me is it makes it sound like, oh, well, we were in office with some people remote, okay? And in professional services, by the way, your employees, I mean, the contract programmers and all that, they're all working at the customer site. So they Correct. Are, by definition, remote. But, in professional services, you do have office staff. You have your salespeople, you have your recruiters, right? You have your admin, you have your accounting and billing, you have all that. All right. So you did have a core office group.
Yes.
What changed? So you make it sound like, oh yeah, and then we went remote and we meet up every morning, so everything's cool. It wasn't cool. You had to learn some things. What are the things that you sort of learned getting to the model where you're now comfortable with? You were so comfortable with being remote that you sold the building.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things is, we get everybody in the metro Atlanta area together about once a month for an activity. If it's a lunch or Top Golf or whatever, we get a chance to come together face to face. And twice a year, we bring in all of our out-of-state staff along with their spouses, and we get together with all the local staff and their spouses, and we have an activity. So usually that's Christmas dinner, and then we do something during the summer. Last year we rented a houseboat. This year we had the back of a brew pub and just hung out and had a good time together. But it's encouraging that face-to-face interaction, and I feel like we always get a bump after we do that as well. Everyone's charged. It's been great to see everybody.
Do you do anything that's business oriented, or it's great to just be together?
We used to do a lot of training, team building activities, ropes course, things like that, and we still do that on occasion, but for the most part, the team really just wants to get together and they want to hang out.
So they want to be in each other's fleshly presence. Okay?
Correct. Just talking and joking around, and just a chance to get to know them. Because over Zoom, you can only go so deep. You can only go so deep. Right. So yeah.
What about when hiring new employees?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there any difference between hiring new employees knowing that they're going to be 100% remote versus being 100% in office, or 100% or 100% hybrid, if you will? In other words, there's the three that you got: in office, hybrid, and remote. When you're trying to hire somebody,
mm-hmm.
be it a recruiter or salesperson or whatever else, has anything changed in the profile that you're hiring for each one of those three sort of types of work environments?
Yeah, well, for the 100% remote, you have to make sure you have people that do not mind accountability. Here are metrics. You need to hit these every day, every week. There are no exceptions to this. We're not in the office. We're not standing over you. We trust you. We don't see what you're doing every second of your day, but you need to hit these with intent.
So you got to hit your numbers.
Yes, and if someone's
going to work, unapologetic about you got to hit your numbers.
No.
And we're also on it. If you don't hit your numbers, then you put into let's talk about it, then there's a warning, and then there's eventually probation, and you're gone, right?
Correct. And you have to make sure the person that's working remote wants to work remote. There's some people that want to come in the office. They need that interaction. They want the water cooler talk. They need to see people in person 2 or 3 days a week. Someone like that will not work out in a fully remote position, and we found that out the hard way.
Well, how do you even, if I'm looking for a job and you tell me it's all remote and I need a job, I'm all over it. Oh, I love remote. Yeah, I think it's great and all that. How do you interview to make sure that is in fact the case?
Yeah, well, you can ask for examples. Your last position or two, was it remote, hybrid, in office? How did you handle it? How did you like it?
Okay.
There's some basic questions you can ask. If they've never done remote, why do they want to work remote? Do they have a distraction-free environment? Those things are important.
I think one of the things that we talked about is you found that you had to, when you started to move more and more to full-time remote, is that you had to move away from less experienced people to more experienced people.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more. Did I capture that right?
Pretty much. So it's just the one negative that I found to not having an office is you lose the shoulder time. So in the past, I could hire somebody with no experience or just a little bit of experience, and I could set them next to one of my if it's a recruiter, one of my most experienced recruiters. And through listening to them all day, they're picking up, they're hearing, they're getting better. That was kind of how the recruiting industry started. So we've had to develop in-house training, metrics. Our management is very in tune with our employees to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. But the informal time has gone away. So that was probably what I was getting at.
But if informal time has gone away, then what happens is, if I'm a junior recruiter, how do I learn to become a senior recruiter? Because you're not watching what I'm doing all day long. All you're doing is have me call in the morning.
Yeah, we tell people what they need to do to be successful, and I do believe if they follow our program, they will be successful. And we have had, we've had people that have come in with a minimum amount of experience, and they followed our program, and they've become highly successful. So that has worked, but I think it takes the right individual.
But if you're dealing with, is it fair to say that that inexperienced people or people with less experience, okay, for their position, working remotely are at higher risk of not succeeding than someone who is experienced?
Say higher risk, I just say they're not getting that informal time around more experienced people in their profession where they're listening and hearing and pulling information, ways of doing business, etc. Because that's how I learned the business. I was in a staffing agency. I was in a bullpen with like 8 people, and I could hear all day what everybody was saying. And I started picking up on that and using it myself.
Yeah, now that those people, now if I'm fully remote, I don't have
Mm-hmm.
any of that.
Yeah. So
So,
that's probably your bit. To me, that's probably the biggest negative.
well, that's a pretty big negative,
Yes.
because a lot of times you can't just do it in training. A lot of what you learned is somebody was walking past you and
Mm-hmm.
heard you and said, "Hey, Jason, next time you might want to think about putting it this way or talking that way." Or
Correct.
you hear the guy who's killing it and you just
Mm-hmm.
listen to him for a while just to see how he does it,
Yes.
right? And that's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The other question I had about remote is, how do you have managers, okay,
Mm-hmm.
working for you in your company? How do you develop people who are fully remote into managers, from actually functional level people to management level people? How do you do that?
I think it's just continuing to pour into them, spend time with them. With our managers, we have a weekly management meeting where we have a set agenda that we go through. Each day we're speaking with them as to the accountability their staff should have, what they should be doing, what metrics they should be hitting, why success is or is not happening. So when coaching them, they can coach their staff.
Well, how do those managers? This is the issue I have. How do those managers? I always say the mark of a good manager is
Mm-hmm.
not only achieving their results that were set out for them, but a
Mm-hmm.
mark of a good manager is he builds new managers,
Mm-hmm.
right? He
Yes.
kind of develops them along. How does that manager develop, you know, that recruiter? Let's say the recruiting manager is looking, as your company is continuing to grow and you're doing really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that recruiting manager, okay, work with what he identifies as a very promising recruiter who will then become and has the ambition to become a manager? How does that person develop, that line level person
Yeah, a
into a
lot of times
manager?
in our industry, the people that make it into management are usually your highest achievers because
Okay.
they've if you have a good program like at iStaff, we have a certain program that we really believe in that if you do these things, you will have success. You'll be able to make good money for you and your family. You have the flexibility of working remote. All of that's there. So usually it's like in a lot of industries, you look for your highest performers and then you pour into them and develop them.
Well, I don't want to beat this to death, but I guess I got one more question: is how did you used to do it pre-COVID,
Hmm.
developing those high performers into managers, and how do you do it now that everybody's remote? Can you
So
remember back to
yeah,
pre-COVID?
I'm thinking back. We probably had more time in the office where we would pop in informally and talk to each other, but we just do that over Teams now. A lot of that is still there. We're still having these conversations all the time. I think the key is to continuously have conversations. You just don't have people that are sitting off on an island somewhere and they're checking in once a week. We are very intentional about engaging with our team throughout the day and throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year.
Interesting. I'll share this with you. There was this lady that I know who runs her own marketing agency, and years ago, prior to COVID, okay, I remember walking in and she had this camera and these screens around it, okay, and and this was among the cubicles, okay, where
Hmm.
her other people were located. And I said, what is that all about? And she goes, oh, well, we hire people remotely and then they're online basically all day long
Hmm.
as though they're here in the office. And I said, I could see that could work. But so I've never heard anybody else do that but her. And that was pre-COVID.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to work in an environment like that. I wouldn't want to have a camera staring down at me all day. I'd want my employer to trust me that I'm getting my work done, and that trust is proven in the results that are there daily and weekly and monthly, not because someone's looking over my shoulder.
Well, I'll tell you, Jason, your results prove out your management methods
Thank
for
you.
going remote, okay? Because you've got this vibrant, growing company and you're doing very, very well.
Thank you.
You're a good friend and you're a very, very good businessman. So thanks for spending this time. I think this will
You're
help
welcome.
people, and trying to make this go. And besides, you're not a landlord anymore. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
Yeah. Thanks for the time.